Hello, everyone, and welcome to Co-Creation Station, the podcast where we talk about the law of attraction, spiritual magic, and how to best enjoy this magical, mystical, mysterious, sometimes confounding journey we call life. My name is Collin. I'm a life coach, tarot oracle card reader, and medium.
My name is Stephanie, and I help people shift away from negative thinking and their lives transform.
And we want to thank everybody who is tuning into the audio version. If you're listening to the audio version of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you so much if instead you are watching us on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. If you are called to like or subscribe to us, we would greatly appreciate it. It helps us out a lot, and we are immensely grateful to you. Each week here on Co-Creation Station, we talk about a different topic. And this week, we're going to talk about happiness. The topic
Getting
of
what we
happiness.
want unexpectedly. How the two work hand in hand.
Sorry, I think I talked over you. So the topic is happiness and getting what we want and how those two things work together.
I think I talked over you.
So you started talking about, before we hit the record button, Stephanie, about your hair.
We're gonna right on roll with it.
Tell us how your
because
hair
you had
relates to
said
happiness.
so. You had said, I go, yeah, let's talk about happiness, and
I love
then I
your
go,
hair. Looking at your hair makes me feel very happy.
oh, thank you. Me too. And I was saying, yeah, and how we end up getting what we want unexpectedly. And I said, I realized this week that um, I got what I wanted for years. I have thick hair. It's not as curly as it used to be. I have a lot of body to my hair, and those of us women and men who have, thicker hair, it's not straight. To do something with it every morning can take a long time. And I'm not that girl. Like you see, I don't wear a lot of makeup. I just wear
I
tinted
take
coverage.
so much time with my hair every morning.
I can tell. Aw.
Ridiculous. So ridiculous.
And so I would just clip it. Like I would just pull it up and be like, oh, I'm not messing with it, da da da. And then I got it blown out a couple of times in the past couple of years and loved it. And then I just started having it done and regularly. And then I realized this past week, I'm like, oh my God, Steph, you've always wanted to have a hairstyle where you just get up, hardly do anything to it, and it looks great. And I'm like, that's what I have with this blowout. I like finger it a little bit in the morning, and then I'm like good to go. And I'm like, oh my God, it's fantabulous. So thank you, Sarah, for blowing out my hair every week. And that just came about unexpectedly. And I didn't even realize I've been doing it for a couple months now. And it didn't even dawn on me until this past week. I was like, oh my God, like I just do hardly anything to my hair and I love it. It looks great.
That's really cool. I think, sometimes when people, myself included, think about the law of attraction and using the art of allowing to help the law of attraction work in your favor in terms of bringing more of what you want into your life, or bringing more of what I want into my life. Like, I tend to, and I think a lot of people tend to, focus on like big things like a new car, a new apartment, or a new house, or
Lover, job,
yeah, a new
money.
job, a new partner, romantic partner, something like that. Um, and I think one of the things I learned from Abraham, I think The Secret mainly deals with those sorts of big things, because The Secret is like, that film is like an introduction. And I think it's good that they stuck to those big ticket items in a way, because it's like, it kind of brings it home if you're just getting introduced to it. But one thing I really learned about from Abraham Hicks, and I still forget it a lot, I'm trying to remember it more often, is the concept of segment intention, which is
Yes.
understanding that your entire day, each day, is made up of segments of you doing things. And typically, most of us will just go on autopilot and we just go through these segments of our day, like getting ready for work, and then getting in the, well, pre-COVID, getting in the car and driving to work. And your morning at your job, and then lunchtime with a coworker, and
And
then
responding to other people, reacting instead
right.
of being proactive
Yes.
by doing the segment intending, by paying attention to how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking and what I'm doing versus just responding.
Right. And so the concept of segment intention, which I had never heard before Abraham, is that right before you start a segment of your day, like a part of your day, we're going to be doing something, you set an intention, which is that this drive to work is going to be beautiful. I'm going to have the least amount of traffic possible. All the other drivers are going to be nice and courteous. I'm going to see some beautiful trees, and I'm going to arrive at work refreshed and energized and ready for my day. And just that little, I don't know how long that took me, but it's like 7 seconds, or something like
Yeah.
that. And that little, um, pre-paving of the road can really help those things happen. And yet, if I just rush out of the house in the morning and I jump in my car and I drive to work, I can carry the stress of yesterday, or things I'm worried about, into that, and then I can have a stressful drive to work, not knowing that I could have used segment intention and I could have flipped that. So I think that's why when I heard about it from Abraham, I was kind of like, oh, I really did think for a while, like, oh, I thought law of attraction was for big stuff. I didn't think it would be for like a nice drive to work, or like the haircut I've always wanted, or
And isn't it those little things that really, it's all those little moments that make up a nice life, that make up a nice experience, that make a nice afternoon, which builds into a nice evening, which day after day, week after week, month after month, create a really good life and a
yeah,
happier, healthier us.
yeah,
It's just those, because like as you say, the big cash and prizes, those are really nice
yeah.
and they last for a moment, but it's that day in, day out, moment by moment that really, all together make a happy, healthier us.
Well, and the other thing, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but the other thing from Abraham about happiness to me is, and this is like, I still struggle with this sometimes. Like, I get it, I understand it, and I believe it, but it's like sometimes I still struggle to like put it into action, I guess, which is that, Abraham has said many times in her workshops that you only want something as a human when you have a desire, like you want to go on a trip somewhere, or you want to have a great date with somebody new or whatever. Like, you only really want those things for the result, which is you think it will make you feel happy. You
We're
think it will
good,
make you
feel
feel
good,
good.
right?
Yeah.
Feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like this, I feel like in a weird way, it's it's like reverse psychology or something, where but we can choose to be happy at any time.
Yeah.
Like, we
It
really
is a
can kind of
choice.
change our thoughts, change our beliefs, and get into a place. And this is something I think The Secret actually does really well, but I don't hear people talk about it, reference it very often, which is, I mean, Bob Proctor has a whole section in there about like, put on a great piece of music, like go visit your friend who has a newborn baby, and like, or somebody who has a puppy or a kitten, like that, those sorts of things will just usually will put you in a really good place. And
Dance
um
party. I was, like I
yeah.
love to listen to music while I'm
Mm,
making breakfast. And
yeah.
I have a dance music playlist.
Hmm.
And every time I play that list, I end up moving my body and, you
Yeah.
know, um, and I remember that time, I don't remember where I got it from, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to laugh
Oh yeah.
a minute on Tuesdays. And at first it was Tuesday. Every week on Tuesday, I'm going to laugh for a minute. And so I would laugh. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to do it on Tuesday and Thursday. So I'd laugh a minute on Tuesday and Thursday. And then did like 2 minutes. and then after for 3 minutes. And then I remember one time I was literally in my kitchen. This had been, I've been doing it for months, for like 40 minutes. It was
Mm.
crazy. And I would literally like bend over, like laughing at myself for laughing. And
Mm-hmm.
then I got to the point where I would be like, if someone saw me now, they would think I was freaking crazy. And then that would make me laugh. So now I've built up my muscle on laughing that I can get the giggles. Like, well, as you've seen, if you watch and listen to this show,
Pretty much the
sometimes
first
we're,
5 seconds of every
yeah,
episode so
yeah,
graciously is me laughing.
and it's just like sometimes I have to be careful because it's inappropriate. I'll be in a situation. I'm like, I remember being in a meeting and I like I got the case of the giggles, and it wasn't a time where I should be laughing.
Yeah.
But it is a muscle, like with most things.
Mm-hmm.
Even feeling good is like, I feel like it's like a muscle now. Like,
Yeah.
when we practice this stuff, it's pretty easy to get into that state. um yeah, and who doesn't like laughing? I don't know anybody.
Well, I think everybody likes it. I don't think the issue is like, I think everybody knows, or most people know, like if you're a human, you like to laugh, you like to be happy. But I think that there's a lot, like I've worked in the corporate world for a long time, and there's an expectation, and this isn't right or wrong, I'm not judging, but there's an expectation a lot of times that you will be, like if you're going to be in a meeting, in a corporate job, that you're going to be serious, because it sort of looks like if you're laughing too much, the idea is that like you're not being professional enough, you're not paying attention enough to your duties. And I think that's something that we've kind of lost our way on, because is it possible for you to be goofing around so much that you don't do something that you really need to do, and the answer is yes, I guess. But I think a lot of times in life we've gone way too far to that side of not being able to laugh at ourselves and the absurdities sometimes of human existence, just all the crazy weird things that end up happening. I'm always amazed. It's like pretty much anybody, if I haven't seen them in 24 to 48 hours, if I ask them, tell me a crazy story of something that happened to you in the last 24 or 48 hours, almost everybody has a story. It could be they were walking down the street and some weird, somebody was saying something very bizarre to their dog or something, so I think that there's this misconception that like you have to approach so much of life seriously. And it doesn't mean that you have to be like laughing hysterically through every moment of your life. But I think that we have the ability to bring humor and bring a sense of fun into any activity.
So let me ask you, what makes you happy?
It's a good question. Because lately I've been observing myself, and because I think for me there's two channels of happiness or modes. One of them is like something I would say just I feel like contentment, where I don't feel like on fire all over my body, like yay, but I feel like all is well.
Yeah.
Like I feel like my life is great. I'm really grateful.
Yeah.
I'm doing whatever I'm doing throughout my day, and I'm not like in some sort of ecstatic like woo state,
Yeah.
but I feel good about how things are going.
Yeah. And that makes you happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then there's other times where I really feel the emotion physically of happiness and joy in my body. And the funny part of that is,
What causes that?
What's that?
Like when you're feeling that, what causes you to feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing is like, I would say it probably statistically it happens when I'm doing things I really love, like this podcast or playing music, which is one of my passions, or
yeah, oftentimes when we're done with the podcast, I feel like on fire, like
I feel super happy when we're doing it, usually like when we do our little laughing thing
we're finishing the friend time and something.
That just made me think sometime like maybe we could have a contest where we like the prize is you get to be in friend time before we start recording someday. Like you
what?
like one of our listeners or viewers, like they get to join, they'll get to come on this
And we do friend time
that we don't
Oh,
record.
I love that idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Ooh.
We'll work on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally lost my train of thought. I just totally came up with that contest idea.
Write
what
it
was I
down.
talking
Write
about?
it down.
Happiness?
Let's write it down. Yeah. Well, and
I've totally forgotten what I was going to say.
I
have no idea what I was talking about.
Okay, so we would have a contest. What would the contest be?
Oh yeah, like what would you have to do to win? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's funny because on social media, YouTube and such, like I see people have contests all the time, and they're like super boring in the sense that you just have to like, it'll be like the 10th comment, or, if you want to enter the contest, like just send us a direct message or something, and then we'll choose somebody at random.
Yeah.
I always feel like I want people to not like, I don't want to give anybody like something hard like homework, but like some hoop of a manageable sort that they have to jump through in order to.
Okay. I love it.
Like, what's the best, like something like who could come up with like the best fill in the blank? Like listener or viewer could come up with the best fill in the blank. Like thing that they've manifested, maybe.
Ooh.
Oh.
What if it
light bulb?
was like,
I see it.
What if it was a story, one of their experiences that they thought was funny, and whoever made us laugh the most?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Funniest story.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Funniest story.
So, I guess we're doing the contest now. I guess we've like invented it. We've invented it, started it. Luckily, I'm a lawyer, so I can write on the language while you talk for the rest of the episode. All right. So, all you have to do, if you're listening to the podcast, you can email us at co-creation station. That's all together with no punctuation or spaces, and then 1111 afterward at gmail.com. So co-creation station 1111. So the digits 1111 at gmail.com. Email us your funny story, and we will, let's say we'll pick the 3 funniest to read on the show, and then the one that makes us laugh the most on the show, you will get a prize of getting to join Stephanie and I in our friend time before we start recording.
Yeah, which is usually on Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Pacific time.
U.S. Pacific time.
Yeah. 10:15.
And we should probably let them come on for like the first few minutes of the actual show as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So you'll be on the show also.
Yeah.
That contest made me happy.
Yeah, and we laughed. So yeah. I was thinking too, because earlier this week, just a few days ago, I was driving and I was listening to music, and I was like, I'm so happy. And I was like, yeah, I'm feeling really good. And sometimes I have to check in, because I don't know about you, but if I consume some caffeine, whether it be through kombucha or, jasmine tea or something, I'm like, okay, is it that first little high from caffeine? And so many times in the past week, in the earlier part of my morning, I'll be like so happy. And that's what, doing my morning routine and getting into the vortex, I just am like freaking flying high. And I'll be like, did I have caffeine? Like, is that why I'm so happy? And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't have any caffeine. Like, what? And I'm like, holy crap. This is from being inside the vortex. Like, what? Like, energetically, I'm just like, oh. And again, I had that moment. I'm like, I'm like, no, this is like pure, like just feeling good, just because. Like, so, and I'm like, yeah, just feeling good makes me happy, and just overall about my life,
Yeah. I remember what I was talking about, because I was kind of answering your question about like what makes me happy, and I talked about the 2 different channels. Like there's kind of just like contentment, which I have like often just randomly, but But the tingly feeling, like I literally have like a tingly feeling that can
Ooh,
come over
yeah,
my
on top
head
of your
and
head,
like,
yeah.
but just, it's like a warm, fuzzy feeling in my body where I really feel
Mm,
like, oh, I feel happy. Like I really am physically feeling the emotion of happiness.
yeah.
Sometimes it happens when I'm doing something that makes me really happy, but sometimes it hits me randomly, like as well. Like sometimes I'll just be like laying down for a nap and then I don't know,
You
I'm just
get
like,
that
wow.
physical sensation on your
Yeah.
head and
Yeah.
the warm.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Because
But
go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, good.
I've had that tingly feeling on my head. Usually it's like when someone's sharing like some truth to me,
Mm-hmm.
like I'll
Yeah.
physically like have a response to it.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I've never had that just from like getting up from a nap or taking a nap or that's interesting.
I mean, I don't like it feels like it comes out of the blue. I don't think it actually comes out of the blue in the sense that I think it's the result of a lot of the work that I've done over the years of changing my thought, changing my beliefs,
Hmm.
um, you know, attracting more of what I want into my life so that it
Yeah.
is kind of this like, ooh, like life is good kind of thing.
Wow, that's
Um,
awesome.
but it does happen, like it happens when I'm listening to music and
That's
dancing.
what I was going to ask
And
you.
really
Like,
good.
when
Yeah.
are there,
Yeah.
when have you had that same experience, but it's been because of something you've been doing?
Yeah.
So
It's
dancing and
interesting.
music.
Yeah, like when I'm in rehearsal with my band, or just playing at home by myself, I usually feel it.
Mm,
It's interesting because when I perform, I've had this thing for a while that I've been aware of that with my old band in New York when we used to go on tour, the first few shows I would really be nervous,
yeah.
and that would kind of block me like really being present and really being happy.
Yeah.
But what I loved about being on tour, I mean, among the fact that it's just fun to travel around and like meet
Yeah.
different people and
Yeah.
stuff, is that after like I would say after 3 shows, because you're playing the same set of songs
Yeah.
every show, and you're playing almost every night, and so by the fourth night, the fourth show, I pretty much have all the nervousness out of the way.
Yeah.
Like I've sung all the songs, all the words are, I don't even have to think about the lyrics. My
Yeah.
fingers go where they need to go.
Mhm.
And that's when I feel like I can really have fun and perform, but
Mm,
also
mm.
feel happy in the present moment while I'm playing.
Being present. That's what I was thinking. Then you're present, huh? You
Yeah,
know, it's interesting that you bring that up because I feel like we go all over the place in our, I don't even know,
we
but
do.
yes. About practice, like sometimes we don't like okay, I'll speak
We're
for
talking
myself.
about practice.
Sometimes in the past and even presently I won't do something because because I'm not good at it. I can't be perfect and do
Yes.
it correctly, so therefore I'm not
Yes.
going to do it at all. And then I'm like, but how are you going to get better if you don't do it? So like you need to have practice. And
Yes.
so like what you were saying is like at first you weren't able to be present, and and then but then the more you did it, you got more comfortable with it, and you were just like, okay, and then you were able to set all of that aside because you were comfortable with it, and I got this down, and then you were able to be present, and you were better at it.
Yeah.
And because I shouldn't say this. Okay. It just involved to someone else, and I don't want to call someone out without their permission, but how could I
You
use it
can
in
just
one
give
of
him a fake name like Herb
so
or not.
Jerry. So Jerry, when I first started using Jerry's services, I noticed that I was going to use his service, and I noticed that when he started talking to me about the financial part of it, like what he charged,
Hmm.
his neck got red. I just physically noticed that. Like and I
Whoa.
yeah, and I was like, I just noticed it. I was like, huh, look at that. And later, like years later, when I started offering my services and like getting to the point where I would say the number, like what I charge, I would get all like my voice would change, and because I got
Mm.
nervous.
There's nervousness.
And then I went, oh, that's what was happening to Jerry because he was fine. And then when he started talking what he charged, his neck got red. Like, and I was like, he was having a physical response of nervousness and fear, whatever his beliefs were around that. However, I know now, Jerry, years later, like when he talks about his fees and like he probably doesn't get red anymore because he's so comfortable, because he's said it so many times that he's just, it's a non-issue.
Yeah.
And so just like for you, what you were talking about in your band, at first you weren't able to be present, you weren't, didn't really get to enjoy it as much but once you practice it, then you got to a point very quickly. And so it's that whole thing of like, it's okay to like make a mistake. It's okay to be nervous. It's like, that's all part of it. And we've all been there. Anybody who's famous and successful went through those stages, whether we realize it or not. And for me, I think it was a gift that I noticed that Jerry's neck turned red. I didn't know why at the time. I wasn't relating the two. But then years later, I was like, oh, and I admire Jerry. Jerry's professional. He's really good at what he does. He's super successful. And yet he had a moment in time where that wasn't the case. And so it's like giving all of ourselves a break and giving myself a break, allowing myself to not do it well, to be nervous, to be scared, to turn, let's say, my neck red or my face red or have a hot flash, whatever it may be. But that's the way I get to be successful eventually, or get to be really good at something eventually, or just even do it and then continue to do it. Instead of saying like, oh no, I might make a mistake or I might look stupid or what have you, I'm going to do it anyways.
So that was all really good stuff. I just, the problem is when you said the word practice, the way you said it made me think of something that normally I would just burst out laughing, but you didn't know.
You kind of did.
No, I did. I reined it in because if anybody, and I don't know if I think I did text you this, like so far our audience, according to the Anchor app that we use to create the audio version of the podcast, I looked at our demographics so far, and apparently all of our audience in the audio version is women. We haven't had a single male person listen to the podcast yet.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know why, but so I don't know if there's a lot of people who will get this reference, but it actually goes to the thing I was laughing about, actually directly relates to what you're talking about, but it's also hilarious. So, and for people who want to check out what I'm about to talk about, all you need to do is search YouTube for ESPN practice speech. Will probably get you there. And then that's the original. And then what you want to watch, you also want to Google Frank Caliendo, the comedian, Morgan Freeman practice speech. So you want to look at those two videos. So what that is I forget what year it was, but there was an NBA player, Allen Iverson, who was one of the best players in the league for a long time, played for the Philadelphia 76ers. And one time the media, I don't know if it was preseason or whatever, but the media was invited to a practice. And then he had to answer questions from reporters afterwards. And somebody asked him, I guess he had, I forget exactly what it was, but it was something like he had dropped the ball a few times in practice or whatever. And somebody said, do you feel like, or it might have been one of his teammates or something. But anyway, one of the reporters said, well, do you think that, the fact that you dropped the ball or somebody else dropped the ball in practice, are you concerned about what that means for the rest of the season? And he was known, Allen Iverson was, had an ego, wasn't the most fond of reporters, had a bit of a reputation for giving reporters a hard time, but you can see it as you watch the interview. He makes the mental decision that he's just going to repeat the same phrase over and over again, but nobody knows that's coming except him.
Yeah.
And he does this almost brilliant actor thing where he says it differently every time, but he actually just is going to repeat the same phrase. and he says, "You talking about practice? You're talking about practice. I mean, we have a bunch of games that will actually determine who the NBA champion will be, and you're talking about practice. We're talking about practice." And he goes on for like 8 minutes, and he just repeats it over and over again.
Really? Oh my
Oh, it
God,
gets
that's a
ridiculous.
long time.
It
What is
gets, I
that?
don't know, I don't remember exactly how long it is, but it gets ridiculously long.
Yeah,
And
I'm gonna have to watch it.
yeah. But then years later, do you know who Frank Caliendo is, the stand-up comedian? He's like famous for impressions.
I've probably seen him, but I
Yeah,
can't.
his
Yeah.
most famous one is George Bush Jr., President
Okay.
George Bush.
Okay.
But anyway, he does like a bajillion impressions, and he's brilliant at it. And one of people's favorites is he does a spot on impression of Morgan Freeman, the actor.
Oh,
And
nice.
so Mike and Mike from ESPN, these two guys who have a show or had a show for a while,
Yeah.
they used to have Frank Caliendo on all the time, and they actually asked if Frank Caliendo could deliver Allen Iverson's practice speech verbatim, but as if Morgan Freeman
Oh, freak.
had said it.
Oh.
So he's doing this Morgan Freeman thing, which I can't do justice to, but he's like, practice. We're talking about practice. And it's just like, search it, watch it.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. But anyway, but his point, I think Allen Iverson's point in that speech is that even NBA players need practice to be imperfect. They need practice to be an environment in which you can be human and make mistakes and get better. And then the game is where you want to, really excel and do your best as often as possible. But practice is by design a place where you should be able to mess up. You should be able to make mistakes. You should be able to experiment, try out new things, try a shot from a point on the floor where you've never tried it before.
Yeah.
And I think that reporter's question, although understandable, I mean, if that reporter was stuck covering practice, like what else is he going to talk about? But the fact that he drew this line between somebody made a mistake in practice, and that might mean that the Philadelphia 76ers won't win the NBA championship. I feel like I agree with Allen Iverson on that. Like, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's the thing about happiness, and that's what kind of messed me up in a good way when when I learned that from her. It's like, oh, you just want to feel good. Like, if people think like, oh, I wish I had $1 million, what they're really doing is they're creating this fantasy where they have $1 million, but they feel good because they have $1 million. Like, they live in a big house, or they paid off all their credit card debt or whatever. Like, it's not the house, it's not the credit card debt getting paid off. It's how you will feel in the house, or how you will feel once you are debt free, or
And
whatever.
it's in that moment that I'm feeling it. Yeah.
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 Yeah. But it doesn't have to be. I think so many of us try to like go out and do things in order to force happiness to happen. Like, I need a big house to be happy, so I'm going to work 60 hours a week at my job, and I'm going to, I don't know, eat ramen noodles every night for dinner or whatever, and I'm going to buy this huge house, and then I'm going to be happy. And that's not going to make you happy,
Yeah.
typically.
No. Yeah. It doesn't. It really doesn't.
The thing itself isn't going to make you happy. There's the world is filled with stories. I was just thinking about this morning because I'm a musician, and I'm a rock musician, and my band Red Treasure, our music is considered like alternative or whatever. And I was thinking about recently in the last few years, you've had Chad Bennington from Linkin Park, you've had Chris Cornell from Soundgarden. Years before, you had Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots. You've had Lane Staley from Alice in Chains. All these guys I love all those bands. I love all those guys' voices. And I don't mean to say anything about their personal journeys, because who knows what they went through. But it's interesting that, like, I was washing some dishes this morning and feeling like I got into this thinking of, like, I really wish Red Treasure was more famous and, like, had more of a following or whatever. And I was thinking about that. I was like, Linkin Park went all the way to the top of the rock world. Soundgarden went all the way to the top of the rock world. Alice in Chains, Stone Temple Pilots, they all went to the top. And the lead singer, the people who, of all four of those bands, who got the most, external results, people that love them, fan mail, millions of dollars, houses, cars, whatever you want. Those guys all felt unhappy enough to end their lives prematurely. And it just sort of brought me back to like, yeah, Collin, if you chase just getting famous or an external result, thinking that will make you happy, that will not work. It's been proven over and over again. Happiness is a decision internally you make, and you can literally be broke. And I know it's not easy, but you can literally be broke and have nothing and generate a feeling of happiness inside yourself. And if you do that, the irony is that that will attract more of what you want, more money, more success, whatever. But if you're chasing the external for its own end, that won't actually work.
Well, and in the moment, that person's happy despite the external situation, and that's really what we want, right? And I love Abraham's, you can't have a happy ending to an unhappy journey. Like they just it's, you can't arrive there and then you'll I'm going to be unhappy this whole time, and then I'm going to arrive and then I'll be happy. That's just not. I'm going to suffer
and suffer and suffer, and then once the suffering is at a certain
they're not a match.
I will be happy. And it's like, if you practice the vibration of suffering for long enough, you won't remember how to practice the vibration of happiness.
They're just not mutually inclusive.
So it really is this kind of balancing act. And I think we've talked about it before, but it is this balancing act of like, because I think there are self-help, authors and speakers out there that sort of encourage you to like their view of gratitude is like, just be happy for what you have, and like desire is bad, like wanting more is bad. And I think one of the things I love about Abraham is Abraham acknowledges that a truth that I believe firmly is true, which is that humans desire things by nature. And if we judge desire as like wrong or negative or whatever, that is just it's just stupid. I'm sorry, I'm being blunt, but it's just like, it's like labeling breathing as wrong or eating as wrong. It's like, desire is part of who we are. It's going to happen. As you walk through your life, you're going to see things. If you drive on the highway, you might love your car. You're going to see other cars you also love. You might love your house, but if you drive around enough, you're going to see another house that you like too.
Well,
so the point isn't
it's expansion.
What's that?
Expansion. We are meant to expand.
We're meant to expand and grow.
We're meant to experience more. We're eternal beings. So I want to find, like, what else makes you feel good and happy? Like, tell me something and why.
The number one thing for me, I'm really clear on this, it's being around the people that I love. Like the people that I don't know if I can describe it. It's just when I'm with them, I feel happy. Like, you're an example of this. My sister's an example of this.
So when you're with Kelly, like, why do you feel good when you're with her?
What's interesting is, I think, I'll give you what I think the answer is, but then I'll try to explain how I got there. I think the answer is, Kelly and I are on this earth, and one of our purposes is spiritually, we make each other happy. And that sounds like a non-answer, but in studying the work of Simon Sinek on finding your life purpose, one of the things he talks about is the fact that the part of the brain that deals with emotions and that makes decisions also, it's the same part of the brain, actually doesn't have any neural connection to the part of our brain that does logical, intellectual thinking and language. So whenever you try to say why do you love your husband, or why do you love your wife, or why do you feel good when you're with your best friend, what you're going to talk about probably is you're going to list qualities of a good husband or a good friend, So I could list qualities about Kelly that are like, she's funny, she makes me laugh, she's very smart, she's insightful, we love the same movies, we love the same music, we quote movies to each other all the time. But honestly, like what I'm doing there is those things are all true, but they also are just, I'm listing qualities of a good sister that we all kind of understand. I mean, I think the spiritual reality is, and I feel like this with you too, is like part of my purpose is to make you happy, and part of your purpose was to make me happy, among many other purposes. But I just feel like there's something spiritual about people who really get connected.
Well, there's a
We could
connection
try to
there.
explain
That's
it.
why there's a connection there, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because like one of the things that makes me really happy right now is my granddaughter's dog Nibbles.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
I,
pets are great.
yeah, I adore him. And I love dogs.
Mhm.
Um I personally haven't had a dog in, 11 years. And I've enjoyed some other people's dogs, but he came to stay with us again this past summer, but this time he stayed for a month. And I remember thinking, oh my God, a month, like that's way too long. I can't do that. And literally by the second week, I was like, oh no, he's gonna leave in 2 weeks. And the he's so cool. He's like 8.5. He's
Mm.
totally laid back. But yet he at times acts like a puppy. Like when we're gonna
Mm.
go bye-bye, he's like, yeah. And like when he wants a snack, he'll have one paw on the ground and the other paw like half. Like when I come home, he's like somebody jet fueled him, and he's like
Mm.
running around. He's like, oh my God, you came back. And I'm always like, I told you I would come back. And he'll just like chill, and he smiles when he's happy. I can tell he's smiling. I love when dogs smile. So all of that is like, oh my God, like makes me happy as, and it feels good. Feels good. Homeboy makes me feel good.
Well, one of the things that brings up for me is I sometimes think that feeling good is actually our natural state. Our,
It is.
I speak
Abraham says so.
from a spiritual standpoint.
Absolutely. We are pure
I think
love.
the challenge that I've talked about a bunch of times on this show is that the way that the human mind evolved, it is designed to help us survive, and in that
Right.
sense, the biggest skill it has is looking for potential threats. And in the modern world, we've sort of translated that to problems, like problems at work or problems with a relationship or something like that. I'm not saying there aren't problems. I just mean,
Yeah.
um, I think that, but I think that it's really possible that our natural state is feeling good, because when you talk about like Nibbles, sees you after a long time, and sorry, is it a he or she?
He.
Nibbles.
Yeah.
He,
He.
and he's naturally happy. I feel like that's what I love about your tool of the tell me something good, because typically when two people get together and well, I guess I shouldn't speak for everybody, but I mean, a lot of times, I'll talk about me and my friends. A lot of times, again, if we're just in default mode, when a friend of mine and I get together and say, hey, how's it going? Usually somebody says, oh, it's going good. How are you? And I'll be like, oh, I'm good. I'm good. And then when we start talking about what's actually going on in our lives, we start talking about the problems.
I
We start
know. I
talking about
know.
negatives. And the thing I love about Tell Me Something Good is because on the surface of it, if we type that out as a script, it's like, well, we started out positive. I said, how are you? And the other person said, my friend said, good. It's like, why didn't we go good? Because we weren't really connected to something specifically good.
Yeah.
But when you say to me at the start of friend time or anytime we hang out, tell me something good, it puts the pressure on me a little bit to come up with something specific.
It's a focus.
Focus on something good.
Yeah.
And I feel like one of the reasons that pets are so awesome, especially like puppies
Oh my
and kittens, is
God.
like
Right.
they're like constantly focused on the positive. They're constantly focused on like exploring and like,
Yeah.
playing and doing all sorts of crazy stuff with string and, plastic, toys and things like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that tell me something good, that tool of yours, it's almost like it turns me into a dog in the sense that like it focuses me on I think, what is it, my essential nature of like, yeah, let's talk about, because this is the thing. I've I want to do this so much more, but it's so challenging to remember, is that but I have had this thing where I'll talk to a friend when we first meet up. We'll do oh, how are you? Oh, I'm good. How are you? I'm good. And then the other person will start talking about their problems. And I will say after they've talked about 2 or 3 problems, I'll say, yeah, I'm sorry to hear about all that. I hope those situations go better for you. What's going well in your life? Tell me something good. That's usually how I sneak it in.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's amazing to me how it really does just flip the script. And all of a sudden, it's the same person, and it's the same conversation.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden,
it's not the same conversation.
Their whole face lights up instead of before it was down like this, and their body language is like up and active, whereas before they were like, oh, work is so hard, I got this project, and meh, you know. So it's interesting. I mean, I think that's one thing that pets really do well for me too. I love dogs, I love cats, I especially love puppies and kittens. I think the internet and YouTube are just
yeah,
like I can just watch kitten videos all day long, but it's partly because that's connecting me to my inner joy that I think is always there. It's just that when I happen to watch the kitten videos, it's a gateway for me to access that. But I think I'm capable of feeling good all the time. It's just
at least most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, more often. Yeah. One of the things that is almost a surefire when I think to do it to get me to feeling better is comedy.
Oh,
yeah. Like last night I went surfing for something, and 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 as you know, and there might be a couple of people listening that know me, I love the Hump Day Geico commercial with the camel. And yep. And then you turned me on to VJ Mike, I think it is VJ. And he has a montage, a rap one. And oh my God, it's 1.5 minutes long. And I listen to that and I just like start laughing. I can't, sometimes I laugh harder than others, and then speaking of sports and sportscasters, and I didn't think because I shared it with family and I was like, I don't know if other people are going to find this as funny as I do. But then you and I, during friend time, I played it. I had you bring it up on YouTube and we watched the chili pepper one,
Oh God.
Yeah. And so there's this, I'm not going to remember his name, but he,
and so this is real quick for the audience if they don't know about it. It's just there's a company that invented the spiciest nacho chip ever, and
it's Pacquiao huge. Chip.
Yeah, it's huge, and it comes in like a cardboard box for one chip.
Yeah,
and there's all kinds of warnings about it, and then there's all these videos on YouTube now, like newscasters at various news stations did it. It kind of went around the internet, and they just taped people eating this chip, and it surprises everybody. Like pretty much nobody escapes the surprise of how brutal it is.
Oh God!
And they cannot stop.
So watching people in pain from eating this and their physical responses and their emotional responses just makes me laugh. But the one I was speaking of specifically that you and I first started watching that makes me laugh every time, he's a ESPN newscaster and he's in New Mexico. And it's the chili pepper fest or whatever. And he's at the university and he's, the guy's saying, and this is the hottest chili pepper in the world, 1 million Scoville units, blah, blah. And the newscaster, I think it's Rob Stone, he picks it up and I could tell just as he's putting it in his mouth, the gentleman's like goes to like stop him, but does it. And he bites into it and he goes, and he's talking, and then he goes, and then he puts it down, he drinks something, and then he picks it up and puts it in his mouth again and bites it, and it's like, no, what are you thinking? And he's obviously not, But then if you watch the video towards the end, he's like walking away, and he's like, oh, he's like, and I can just hear, it's almost like his inner child, his little boy is like, fuck.
Doesn't he say something? I feel like at the end of that, I might be confusing him with somebody else, but there's one where a guy he walks off the set at the end and he's like, He says something like, "That's the real deal," or "That's no joke."
Oh, that was a newscaster. So
Yeah,
this
yeah.
whole, I think it's 15 minutes long, and they have all these different ones where some of them are doing chili peppers, some are doing the chip, the Pacquiao
Mhm.
chip. And but that's a newscast, and he's walking away and his eyes are watering, and he's like,
Yeah.
that's the real deal. But I haven't done that in a while, but watching those, like, and it's funny because sometimes I'll make my lunch or whatever and want to watch it, and I'm like, Steph, what are you doing? You don't want to be chewing your food and laughing at the same time. That's dangerous. But it's the time that I make time for it. But those videos, every single time, like, I
Yeah.
lose my stuff all over it. So just
Yeah.
like, those are my go-tos.
All right, we've been yapping for a while, so I think we got to wrap it up. But this is a really good discussion. Again, I feel like I learned something from our discussion every week, so it's really cool. So thank you for watching us if you watched us on YouTube, and thank you for listening if you listen to us on the podcast audio version. Stephanie, if people want to get in touch with you,
www.powerenjoy.com.
and you can get in touch with me at my website, collinworster.com. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to like or subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. We'd be super grateful to you. And do we have a guest next week?
We do.
Sam?
Yes, that's right. Samantha Conboy, homeopathy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All about homeopathy.
That sounds exciting to me. All right. So tune in for that, and we'll see you next week on Co-Creation Station. Thanks so much, everybody.